The Iowa caucuses were last night, and it might have been the biggest caucus I've ever seen. It's huge! Could we even talk about it? Could we fit it all in our mouths? We'll find out as we go over some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, what happened, how I was wrong about the caucus, and what it is that happens now that New Hampshire is going to be coming up next, and what it is that they intend to do with their first-in-the-nation primary. And that's, again, pretty much going to be the majority of what it is we talk about today. But as we move on from that, if we do have time, towards the bottom of the show, Fani Willis has some alleged impropriety going on with her and the prosecutor in the case. And in any other case, we might be calling for disbarment for something like this. But regardless, it is a huge ethical nightmare, and it's a huge nightmare for those who want to see the Orange Man go to prison. We'll be talking about what's happening there, what goes on with that, and what we do from there. War strikes again, with the United States putting airstrikes out against Houthi rebels in Yemen. You know, that country that Democrats destabilized the last time they were in power. So we'll go over some of that and what's happening there and what we do with that. And Switzerland offers a peace summit for Zelensky to come out, and many European nations sign on. Is it going to last, or will this be another money draw from the US? We will have to find out. It is going to be all of this and more. So strap yourselves in, find some friends, get some snacks, and get ready for the next 2 hours of huge caucus and blank stares at blank pages. No easy way to say this. You mean well, but you make this hard on me. And I'm not going to write you a love song because you asked for it, because you need one. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, it's a really good thing that I record this for the audio platform and also for a re-upload to YouTube, because I looked down as we were going, and as I was going, when I changed out to the title card, and realized that we already have lost 242 frames in the beginning of this, because I don't know if we're just having low connection. I don't know if the connection is frozen. I mean, it is goddamn cold in Wisconsin right now. It is probably one of the coldest days that I've seen, well, at least since last year, so I think yesterday was a little bit colder, and of course that's stretching down into Iowa for the massive polar vortex that affected the caucuses. And we will be talking about, by the way, some of the cope that came out about that too, and the fact that, oh, my low turnout and it wasn't enough, and look at what's going on with that. But yeah, we've got a ton to go over here today, and I mean, we had a lot to go over before the caucuses happened, but the caucus, that's going to be the big story here, so we're going to talk about that. Not quite at the top of the show, because I got some funny stuff to start off with here, especially given the national holiday that we had yesterday. So, well, grab some snacks, grab some friends, strap yourselves in. Remember, the more you chat, the more we get promoted up to the top of the page, and the more people you can argue and fight with as we go. So feel free to tell me what it is that you think. I do check chat between topics, and hey, in the middle of the topics too. So The Mogwai has actually completely derailed me by getting me to laugh through my nose at some points on this. And let's get started over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Porch Boys, if they ever broadcast again, and Crimeland and Overruled with KTZed. Go check out that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. Daily Ignoramus, I mean, he's been taking off. I've been listening to him on background for quite a while, and I know I haven't done promos for a while. It's just when I went to once a week, I felt almost like a failure at some point here, but I don't know. I feel a bit more energized here. There's going to be some changes coming to my broadcast, not this channel because this one is algorithmically demoted, but I'm going to be putting some new stuff up and some different content here because I am going to be starting a new business in the new year. In fact, I will be buying supplies probably on Thursdays when I'm going to put the order in for supplies for the new business. I think if you've been following the channel for a while, most of you know what this is going to be, what this new venture is going to be. So, fairly excited to see how this goes and what happens with this. And like I said I said this on the New Year's stream, I can sit around and wait around to get the house that I want and get everything set up and move and everything. And you can always find 1,000 excuses not to improve yourself. Or you can just bite the bullet and do it. And that's what I chose to do. If I have to move furniture out of this little closet that I live in order to get this business started, I will. As long as I have a bed, I'm set. Because improving yourself, especially in a impending Biden economy, is one of the better things you can do. And it's better than going out and living that middle-class lifestyle and keeping up with the Joneses and everything else like that. Drop of ice, drop 10 pounds. I'm working on doing that too, by the way, because, well, I need to go more than 10 pounds. I can tell you that. Drop of ice, drop 10 pounds, get a new skill, and get a side hustle, because if the temper tantrums we saw last night translate into November, we are in for a long 4 more years. But let's get into it, and let's get started. Let's get the live chats up here so I can see what you guys are doing and what you guys are saying, and let's get into it. I got Rumble, a couple people watching. No commentary over there. The Mogwai. It's the polar vortex! It is the polar vortex. It's cold as fuck out there. In the middle of the polar vortex, they say it's almost as cold as Hillary Clinton's soul. Well, that would require Hillary Clinton to have a soul to begin with. Now, wouldn't it? All right. Let's talk about what happened, well, in the last 7 days. Alright, we're going to start, of course, with yesterday being Martin Luther King Day, and our fearless leader, Joe himself. A reminder of his inability to grasp reality. Let's have a listen.
But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did. But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did. But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide...
And some of that, of course, comes to the fact that I actually will give Biden some benefit of the doubt on this one based on the fact that the media and our overlords in the organization pushed St. George's death, hallowed be his name, so much to the top of everybody's news feed that, like, I wasn't around. And when did King die? In the 70s or the 60s? Either way, that was before my time. So I don't know what it was that, like, what kind of impact that was. I don't know how much wall-to-wall coverage this got and everything, but I mean, Floyd's death and the ensuing aftermath did have absolute 100% wall-to-wall coverage. You couldn't look at a billboard without seeing the after effects of St. George, hallowed be his name. And of course, when it continued, and of course some of this also being pushed and astroturfed as well, that when we saw something else that was completely justified in Kenosha, that they had to go back and copy that in a town that, well, I spent the majority of my adult life in. So But even still, 81 million votes, folks. 81 million votes. All right. We've got to talk about the caucus. I'm going to talk, I got a couple of videos and articles here about things that happened prior to caucus day. So we're going to start with that. I want to start with this one from Rand Paul. So Rand Paul went on a lengthy thread where he started out by saying tomorrow morning he will have something very, very important to say, with a video to follow talking about where he feels and how he feels about this. But let's talk about what he had to say to start.
Hey everybody. As you know, I've been pretty quiet about the presidential race, which is kind of unusual for me. But tune in tomorrow morning and I've got something very important to say on the presidential race. Hey everybody.
And the follow-up.
As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long relationship with Donald Trump and there's a lot to like there. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the fiscal conservatism.
I know that pained a lot of the DeSantis people right there, because now, before we go into this, and I mean, you can see where the caption is, so unless you're listening to this on the audio platform, you can see what the caption is, and you know what it is that he's going to say. And I think a lot of people at this point know what he said already anyway, because this was all the way back last Wednesday, or Tuesday or Wednesday when this came out. I can actually probably go look at the date stamp right there. January 12th. So last Wednesday. This was last Wednesday when he said this, and I'm pretty sure most people did. But I mean, the speculation for a lot of people was the fact that he was going to come out and he was going to endorse Ron DeSantis, and it just didn't materialize for him. Which I didn't think that he was going to. I didn't think he was going to endorse anybody. I got a little bit hopeful and thought that he was going to run. I'm not going to lie. That was what I was jumping up and down for and thinking was going to happen. But alas, my dreams were dashed too. But this was just, especially with him coming out in the beginning of the video saying he has a good relationship with Donald Trump. The salt that came from that was probably comparable to the salt that came last night with the Iowa caucus results. But let's keep listening.
Of Ron DeSantis. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. And if you go to nevernikki.net, you can let her know that you're not a supporter either. I don't think any informed or knowledgeable libertarian or conservative should support Nikki Haley. I've seen her attitude towards our interventions overseas. I've seen her involvement in the military-industrial complex, $8 million being paid to become part of the team. But I've also seen her indicate that she thinks you should be registered to use the internet, that people posting ideas anonymously. I think she fails to understand that our republic was founded upon people like Ben Franklin, Sam Adams, Madison, John Jay, and others who posted routinely. For fear of the government, they posted routinely anonymously. And I think her failure to really understand that, or to think that you should register through the government somehow for the internet, is something that should disqualify her in the minds of all libertarian-leaning conservatives. So I'm announcing today I'm Never Nikki. You can go to nevernikki.net and sign up and show her that you're Never Nikki also. Thanks.
And I am, by the way, Never Nikki as well. And I have been for a while. We're actually going to have a look at this here.
As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race.
All right, Rand, I love you, but we listened to this already. There it is, Never Nikki. Why Never Nikki? I mean, the whole thing is nothing but a transcript of what he just said in that minute and 38 video. I am Never Nikki, and I hope that you will be too. I am Never Nikki. 100%. There's been, I don't have it on the stack, but there's actually been some talk of the fact that Donald Trump, he could go to Nikki Haley and he could make her the vice president. It would be the way that he bridged the gap between his coalition and the rest of the right wing that he needs to win. Brother, my brothers in Christ, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if Donald Trump picks Nikki Haley as the vice president, that might be the bridge too far for some of his base, who otherwise will crawl over broken glass to vote for him. That would probably be the end of his campaign. And, I mean, it would give the DeSantis people the biggest hard-on in the world. Absolutely, because it would knock him out of the race, and we could take back the GOP for good, principled conservatives and never win a race again. But yes, no, I am never Nikki as well, and I'm already not planning on voting for Trump, although, and I made this admission last night in a Discord chat, if he does go down the road and picks Ben Carson as his running mate, I might. I have not decided yet. If he goes with I think anybody but Ben Carson, I can't do it. Not after the promises of cutting spending and then the errant spending that went on with that after the fact. But I really like Ben Carson, and I think Ben Carson would be an asset to the Trump administration, and it would give him the ability to be an heir apparent in 2028 if things go well in 2024. Which I would enjoy. I would definitely enjoy seeing Dr. Carson become President Carson. But I also know how much spending is hidden in there with a fishhook. Because there are enough people out there that know at this point. If you tell Donald his poll numbers might tank unless he does X, Y, and Z, that's the fastest way to get him to do X, Y, and Z. And I can't vote for that again. I can't. All right, some other lead up here. In an interview on a town hall on Fox News prior to Iowa, Trump saying something again that could get me to come back. And I mean, this is what pushed me into I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him in October. But talking about federalism now, of course, Community Notes did accurately point out the fact that he did take some credit for the lockdowns and did push some of the other states into staying locked down. But this is him now coming for Iowa saying, I wouldn't support a shutdown. I'm a federalist.
I'm a federalist in a sense because that's the federalist way. No, I didn't actually have a shutdown, despite the fact that some people wanted to and some people didn't want to. But we had some great governors. The governors that did the best job were Republican governors, and they were the ones that didn't shut down. I'm a federalist in a sense because that's the federalist way. No, I didn't actually have a shutdown, despite the fact that some people wanted to.
Now, legally and technically, the Donald did not have a shutdown, but yes, he was one of the first people on board telling other people, come on, just 2 weeks, we're going to flatten the curve, we're going to beat this thing, it's going to be gone by Easter, in spite of the fact that the media would never allow it to be done by Easter. And I think a lot of us knew that from the start off of that. But he's already supported one COVID shutdown. If he's going to do this the Federalist way and stay the Federalist way, again, it's a might. But I know what's in the fishhook behind this. The Mogwai says, if you need to make a website to blast someone, you are worried about them. I am desperately worried about Nimrata Haley. She got way, way, way too much of the share in the Iowa caucus last night for me to not be worried about her and her warmongering ways. Yes, I am worried about Nimrata Haley. I don't have the web development skills to make a website to blast her, but if I did, I probably would. I have nightmares at night thinking about the fact that Nikki Haley might be president. So yes, I am worried about her. Alright. I know we got some more video here, but let's throw some music up. All right, Ron DeSantis' last-minute push before coming to Iowa. We cannot allow Anthony Fauci to escape accountability, which, I mean, in the beginning, until the political winds shifted against him, you were a huge cheerleader of Fauci, but none of your none of your biggest supporters can remember that. I can. I am the only candidate who will bring a reckoning for what tyrants like Fauci did to our country during COVID, which... This is part of the reason, and this is why I brought this up. I understand the sentiment to want to hold Fauci accountable, because he frustrated large swaths of my life and derailed a lot of us off one of the best economies we had seen in our lifetimes, especially me, who was just coming into the workforce in the Obama administration right as he was trying to push the rest of it down. So, well, more poor people vote for Democrats, because we can tell them that we'll give them the life away. We had one of the best economies since that moment. Some of us, that's our entire adult life right there. And Fauci derailed that. But the thing with DeSantis is he's a finger in the wind politician. He says he wants to hold Fauci accountable because it's politically popular, because so many people got their lives derailed based on the advisement that Dr. Fauci was giving to the president. The former president, I should say, and, well, the current president, too. The problem that I'm having with this, especially seeing the way that MAGA is doing this, is he's a political enemy. And you're doing the same thing that the government's doing to Trump. You want to open up and go directly into this and say you're going to use the levers of government to take down a political adversary. And you're going to run on that. That's what Letitia James does. That's what Fannie Willis does. That's what Alvin Bragg does. You've spoken out against all three of these people, and yet you want to go back and do the same thing. Or at least allege that you want to go do the same thing because it's politically popular. I don't believe that Ron would do that if he, God forbid, ever got to the presidency. But yeah, that's what those people do. So, that is Ron DeSantis' final push. And right before the caucuses, absolutely hilarious, Ron DeSantis gets a participation trophy. Well, he doesn't accept it, but he gets a participation trophy at a campaign event. Let's watch and listen.
Real quick, before we get started, thank you, everyone. Governor DeSantis, I want to present to you this participation trophy. Now, probably not going to win the election, right? But we're proud of you for trying. There you go.
Trophy. Sorry, buddy.
No, I mean,
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
He's special, he's unique, and he's our little snowflake. Thank you. Here you go. Did you want the award?
And his big goons are right there. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. That is my favorite part of this, that DeSantis has goons to come back out and disappear this guy.
Thank you. Here you go. Did you want the award? We're so proud to see you.
That was one of the funniest videos I saw the entire campaign season. The Mogwai asked the question, are the borders to Florida being watched? Good. We can't have COVID enter the state. Fast forward to now, let's burn him at the stake. Yes, and I love the revisionism too. Like, I saw it with my own eyes. If I hadn't taken a road trip with Stephen Ignoramus in, what was it, June of that year? June of 2020, I think. If I hadn't taken a road trip with Stephen Ignoramus that day, I would probably actually be able to be swayed into the opinion of, oh, Ron DeSantis was open his state right away and had one of the best COVIDs and was one of the freest governors of all of COVID. No, I saw the checkpoint with my own eyes. Stephen Ignoramus was with me. He saw the checkpoint too. We saw the checkpoint that they were taking down at the time, where they were pulling traffic in, all traffic on 95, to swab everybody's cheek. I physically saw the checkpoint. So you can't tell me that he was the freest and openest governor out there. It's amazing in this day and age that candidates try to use revisionist history. Well, their fans let them get away with it. That's a big part of it. Because they forget about it because they see, oh, well, they did all the good stuff. All right, let's get into the actual caucus news here. So we've got the results across the top, and we can look down at some of them too. But right now, with 99% of the vote in, guys, DeSantis could still win this. Not all the votes are in yet. He's only down by 30 points. Well, 29.8. He could still win this, guys. Come on, DeSantis bros. But Donald Trump has been projected and appears to have won the Iowa caucus results. Now, we've got, and I mean, Iowa's a small state. It's not a heavily, densely populated state. And as we will see from some of the COPE, not everybody came out to vote who's registered in Iowa. But yes, across the state with 56,260 votes at 51%, to Ron DeSantis' 23,420, and Nikki Haley's 21,085, which is a travesty in and of itself. Yes, Donald Trump is the big winner. What is hilarious about this is he would have had otherwise a clean sweep across the state of counties that he won, except for the fact that Johnson County, which is a largely rural county, swung for Nikki Haley by exactly one vote. You can see the results if you are watching on the video. If you're on the audio platform, Nikki Haley at 1,271 votes and Donald Trump at 1,270 votes. Otherwise, that would have been a clean sweep. And by the way, I'm the only candidate in the race who visited all 99 counties. Well, Ron, all 99 counties rejected you. Just so you know. Now, with this being said and the results, I've already come out and said that I choose not to support Donald Trump at this point. With the very, very specific set of circumstances of if he chooses the right running mate, which I think the only one I can think that I would is Ben Carson. But I have always been very open about the idea that DeSantis people and Trump people need to learn how to get along fucking quick. They need to learn how to get along in a hurry, because otherwise we've got 4 more years of come on, man. And honestly, I really think we're going to have that no matter what the hell happens with this. But I'm making a pledge right now, and I've stuck with this already. I have gone out of my way, no matter how much fire and how much sulfur they are throwing at me, not to insult DeSantis people. And I'm making an official pledge right now, even though, again, I've already been going out of my way not to. I will not insult Ron DeSantis himself, the leader of the religion of the DeSantis people. And I will not insult the DeSantis people. While I will not vote for either candidate, or Haley if she, for God forbid, somehow actually gets there, while I will not vote for any candidate that's down there, I know that these two camps need to learn how to get along. Otherwise, we have got 4 more years of, hey, I promise to uphold the thing, man. Jill, where am I? And I would hope that the actual Trump supporters that I know, and I know many of them, would also come together and do the same and make the same pledge. There's a lot of salt flowing from the DeSantis camp right now. You need to reach out to them and say, we want you on our team. Many of our more extreme members said stupid stuff. We are not going to hold to that. We want you on our team because we want your vote. And we want to oust this moron who doesn't know where his ass is with both hands. 5 takeaways out of our friends over at NPR. And remember, hit that donate button because NPR is only 10% government funded. And their advertising budget does not give them the rest of the funding that they need. So, they need your money, I mean our money, comrade, to make sure that they can continue to tell you that anybody who is to the right of Mao is 100% evil. And the takeaway from the caucuses is that evil is about to win. And that we'll be plunged into 4 more years of hell with the great Satan at the helm. And if you don't hit that donate button, they can't tell us that. So hit that donate button. NPR is Never Printing Reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. Alright, 5 takeaways. We're going to skip the intro here. Republicans have been saying they're still with Trump. Believe them. I did not pre-read this article, and it's as already I can tell as bad as I thought it was going to be because it's from NPR. Excuse me. Trump won by such a large margin that the Associated Press was able to call the race at 8:31 p.m. Eastern Time, much to Bill Mitchell's disdain, by the way. Just a half an hour after the voting began, it was able to do so because it conducts a massive voter survey. Then it compares that to key precincts in the state, which show Trump with an insurmountable lead. So much of this race has been a race for second place, and that held up. Trump finished with more than 50% of the vote, and had the most enthusiastic voters in polling. They showed up despite predictions that they might not because of record cold weather, and high expectations that he would win. Yeah, I think that they all figured out the last time through that if they want Trump candidates to win, then they can't stay home, no matter what the news tells them. Trump's criminal indictments have only helped him, at least with the GOP base. DeSantis will interpret his second place finish as a reason to keep going, but a path to the nomination for him looks closed off. I want to see where he goes. I do. I want to see what it is that he has to say. I think it is closed off, but I don't want him to get out until he's ready and his message is done. The stakes for Haley in New Hampshire just went up. God help us, get her out of here. Let's see. Mogwai says, my cousin went to the Florida Cancer Institute and I had to prove he had reason to enter Florida and he was disease-free. Can you give me some documentation on that? I would love to see that, especially going into the next primary. I would love to talk about that on Contemporary and maybe even talk to your cousin. Get your cousin in the Discord. Let's talk. We will mute the Midget B channels if we have to. The Mogwai. Ron had 99 counties, but a win ain't one. Just want to check the chat in the other place because it looks like I'm not getting the chat feed from one platform, and I don't know which platform it is. It just tells me I'm at 4 of 6. And I know I'm getting the Twitch chat because it's there. And I'm reading from the Mogwai. Alright, and the last one, caucuses just don't feature high participation. Donald Trump's not that popular. It's just that not enough people got out for this. Jeez. I've been hearing this quote all day. It's painful. It's a little bit painful. Politico also analyzing Trump's win. Trump's Iowa blowout reveals GOP voters' realignment and resistance. From Jessica Piper and Stephen Shepard. Former President Trump's dominant victory in Iowa caucuses on Monday showed just how much the party has coalesced around him in the last 8 years, and which voters are still resisting that realignment. The former president improved on his margins all across the state compared to the 2016 caucuses, winning all but one of Iowa's counties and 87% of the state's 1,657 precincts. He finished more than 30 points ahead of his closest rivals. But his takeover of the GOP electorate is not complete. Nearly half of voters 49%. This is the other cope that's going on. 49% backed another candidate. Look, Donald Trump now holds a record for caucuses in Iowa in non-incumbent years. And yes, technically he's not an incumbent right now. But 49% backed another candidate. Okay, the first time he did this, 63% backed another candidate. He doubled Dole's record, Bob Dole's record, in Iowa. He showed striking weakness in suburban and urban areas and more than 3 dozen precincts in the suburbs. Yes, striking weakness. That looks like striking weakness. Look, I don't like him either, but I'm not lying about him. In more than 3 dozen precincts in the suburbs, Trump received less than a quarter of the vote, even while achieving blowout wins of 90+% of votes cast in a similar number of rural precincts. That pattern, hidden under Trump's commanding overall performance, echoes a trend that has bedeviled Republicans over the past few election cycles. So while the data shows how Trump has managed to consolidate a majority of Republican support, it also reveals his relative vulnerability among suburban and highly educated voters. They're going out of their way to call Trump supporters stupid, by the way. Raising questions about how he will win over a voting bloc that has long viewed him with skepticism and helped fuel his 2020 loss. Honk honk. So Politico with the cope right away. He's really not as popular as he thinks he is. Alright, CBS. And why this is so important. Now, one of the funnier ones that I have here, and I've got an X that goes with this later on. Ron DeSantis was all in on this. Like, legit all in on the caucuses. And now his people are saying, and those people were saying this was the most important race in history. Partially because they thought they were going to win. And they're not saying that anymore. Now they're saying, one state doesn't determine a win. I almost want to go back and view an alternate history where Ron DeSantis squeaks it out just because I want to see how insufferable they are in that alternate reality. Because I know they all went in expecting that this was going to be a major blowout and they were going to walk away with 90% of the vote. Republicans were in fierce competition ahead of Monday's caucuses. When are the caucuses? We saw that. What's the difference between a caucus and a primary? A caucus involves a more complex process where participants gather openly, engaging in discussions and voting to express their support for a particular candidate. Unlike primaries, caucuses require voters to physically attend specific meetings, which demands a higher level of commitment, meaning there is a lower voter turnout. The process of assigning delegates in caucuses may differ, adding a greater flexibility to the overall method. Conversely, in a primary, voters participate by casting their ballots in private to choose their preferred candidate. This process is akin to general election, allowing voters to select their candidate in a more straightforward manner. Primary elections generally witness higher voter participation due to their accessibility, with voters able to cast their ballots throughout the day. Delegates in primaries are typically allocated proportionally, reflecting the percentage of votes each candidate receives. Primaries offer a simpler and more accessible voting process, resulting in higher voter participation, while caucuses involve a more involved and participatory approach, requiring voters to actively engage in discussions. The decision hinges on the rules and preferences set by the state party. Why do presidential candidates care so much about the Iowa caucus? Well, it's simple, because presidential candidates have looked to the Iowa caucus to help launch themselves to nominee status, even though it's very fickle about frontrunners, and it does separate some of the wheat from the chaff. Remember, Mayor Pete won the Democrat caucus in 2020. And Ted Cruz, God forbid, won in 2016. Let's see. Iowa Republicans selected Huckabee in 08, Santorum in 12, and Cruz in 16, none of whom went on to clinch the nomination. Some candidates who faced defeat in Iowa went on to secure the victory, including Reagan in 80, and H.W. in 88, and Trump in 16. Since its inception in 72, only 3 presidential candidates who triumphed in the Iowa caucuses have ascended to the presidency: Carter, Barack, and W. in 2000. Oh, Dr. Strange has joined us over here. Dr. Strange, I can see thousands of different versions of this caucus. How many did Ron win? None. Alright, so that's why they look at them as important. And I mean, it's a big indicator, too, as to how the rest of the race is going to turn out and how people are going to turn out to that. And again, who can get separated off right from the beginning. Now, one of the things, and I talked about this on a solo video, I've talked about this numerous times on Contemporary, and I talked about this all the time on X, was the fact that Democrats did not have a caucus the same day. They didn't have a primary the same day. With Iowa being a closed registration state, meaning that you could only participate in the caucus if you're a registered Republican at the time, but you still have same-day registration, so you can change your registration the same day. There was a lot of that going on, and Benny Johnson pointing out CBS reporting that Johnson County in Iowa, which is, I believe, a college town, ran out of party switch forms after Democrats overwhelmed the precinct to vote as Republicans for Nikki Haley. No, that's not the college town, but it caused Haley to win by 1 vote. Let's listen.
Major, it's been a very interesting night. They just finished voting. This was a room in favor of Nikki Haley, overwhelmingly so. Ron DeSantis second, Donald Trump a distant third. The most interesting development of the evening, and Anthony Salvanto will find this to be very interesting indeed. They had 50 forms for people who wanted to register tonight or switch their party registration. They ran out of those forms. Members of the caucus team here had to run out to multiple people's homes to get printer paper and get their printers fired up. They printed another 25 or so sheets of paper. They estimate about 75 people were new registrations or switched their registration from Democrat to Republican in order to play in this caucus tonight. And I think that's a big reason why Nikki Haley was lifted up. You're getting a little noise here as they clean up. Was so impressive in this particular outing. If she can repeat that, because we're talking about 20% of the vote here, thereabouts, give or take, were new registrations or crossovers, and that is above the typical rate. You see estimates about 10% in a typical open caucus. So if she can outperform in counties like this one, at caucus sites like this one, then that bodes well for her ability to have a strong second, which of course is what her campaign really wants, to drive the narrative into New Hampshire.
And something else to keep in mind is the fact that New Hampshire also is not having a primary on the same day. And on top of that, Joe Biden isn't even allowed to run in New Hampshire based on the fact that they moved, that the DNC moved the primary off the first spot. The New Hampshire Democrat Party said, fine, we're not going to put you on the ballot then. Screw off. So that's what they have for that. And that's just for the primary. He's going to obviously be there for the general. You know what else came out of last night? Vivek. Vivek is done. From the Associated Press, Vivek Ramaswamy suspends his 2024 presidential bid and endorses rival Trump, which the endorsement actually surprised me a little bit. But I also still believe that Ramaswamy is planning on advertising and putting out a product in 2025 with the express intent of targeting MAGA voters to be his customer base. Which of course means he needs to be as friendly to the Donald as he can. Bill Barrow reporting Vivek Ramaswamy suspended his bid for the nomination on Monday and endorsed former President Trump after finishing a distant fourth in Iowa's leadoff caucuses. Which, by the way, that means his 3 delegates then go to Trump, who at that point leads by 23 over 8 and then 7. Because Iowa delegates are distributed proportionally. Ramaswamy said he made the decision after determining there was no path forward for him in the race. There already wasn't, by the way. Absent things that we don't want to see happen in this country. The 38-year-old political novice who sought to replicate Trump's rise as bombastic wealthy outsider said he called the former president earlier Monday evening to congratulate him on the victory in Iowa. Florida man Ron DeSantis came in second, with War Woman just behind him in third. Ramaswamy told supporters gathered at a Des Moines hotel that Trump, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency. So he's out, and he needed to be out. I don't know if he was the spoiler that Styx thinks that he was, especially with the endorsement. I don't think that he was running for the presidency. I think he is looking to get a solid customer base in the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, and by God, I think he got it. I legitimately think that he did. I think that there's going to be some good or service that comes out in 2025 that MAGA cannot live without. And they're going to be lined up around the block for it. Because Vivek Ramaswamy owns the company. That's an official prediction, by the way. Although, given the results of last night, I don't know how much faith I put in my own official predictions right now, because I thought this was going to be a squeaker last night, and it wound up not being. In fact, it wound up being an absolute blowout. Lindsey Graham wants you to come out to the South Carolina primary. Can you imagine if Nikki Haley loses in South Carolina, by the way? All right, let's talk about some of the aftermath here and some of the salt. Joy Reid telling us about racism. The racism that cost Nikki Haley the presidency. With Circle Back, Jen Psaki sitting here to lead the conversation.
New Hampshire.
And I think to the point that you made, Steph, I mean, it's the elephant in the room. She's still a brown lady that's got to try to win in a party that is deeply anti-immigrant and which accepts the notion that you can say immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. She's getting, birthered by Donald Trump. And I don't care how much the donor class like.
But she's not an immigrant. That's the problem. She was born in Virginia.
Which will ramp up a lot the better she does in New Hampshire. So it's still a challenge. I don't see how she becomes the nominee of that party with Donald Trump still around. I can't picture it happening. Maybe it could happen. Ron DeSantis' only argument for staying in it is he's the white guy, that he can still make the appeal to white people.
While we have...
Yeah, it's all racism, guys. Don't worry. There's nothing else to it. Every Republican is complete one-dimensional. This is one of the big DeSantis supporters, which found something out over the weekend that I'm not going to out, but I think that this particular DeSantis supporter, I thought, was an honest-to-goodness unifier and conservative and everything. I think that this is a play actor who is using her hot body to come out and entice men to be DeSantis supporters. I didn't think that at first. After something I found out over the weekend, I do think that now. And again, I'm not going to out what I found out over the weekend, but I think this is more of a play act again. But the person who was calling for unity and saying just a couple weeks ago that she would support whoever the nominee was and try to build a bridge after Iowa has now said, and this is another person, by the way, too, who came from Florida and spent tons of money to go out and door knock in Florida. Now says one state does not decide the election for the whole country. If Trump is the nominee, I'm sad for the future of this nation. I will not support him, which is a change in position from 3 weeks ago. I'll throw away my vote rather than support him again. Trump's COVID response is unforgivable. I mean, it was better than put a literal checkpoint on I-95, but I digress. Benny Boy, who I have not listened to the Ben Shapiro show from today. I have that bookmarked, and I'm going to do that, I think, after stream tonight. And I have not listened to this clip either, because when I tried to listen to it while I was in the Discord chat, it wasn't muted, but it was so soft, and Seawall and them were talking so loudly I couldn't hear them anyway. And then I just went to bed and didn't bother to listen to it. But let's hear Benny Boy's reaction.
Well, folks, we'll obviously have full analysis of all the results from the Iowa caucus tomorrow on the Ben Shapiro Show, so make sure that you tune in for the full analysis. But here is the very quick story. Donald Trump wins walking away. All of the pollsters called this thing pretty much as soon as the polls open. That raises questions in and of itself about procedure, about whether that affects the final vote tally. But bottom line is they were doing that based on the entrance polling data. Donald Trump is way out ahead. Donald Trump is so far out ahead that the rest of the field can't even see him. This is Secretariat against the rest of the field in the 1973 Belmont Stakes. What does that mean going forward? It means that de facto Trump is the nominee. If no one could challenge him in Iowa, if nobody really has a chance of challenging him based on that momentum going into New Hampshire, if nobody has a challenge for him in South Carolina, then all you can say at this point is that he is preparing for the general election against Joe Biden. And we're already there. Maybe it was always going to be this way. After all, he's been treated by the Republican electorate as the incumbent president. And he's been treated that way because that's how they think of him. Many Republicans think, by the way, that he won the last election against Joe Biden, rightly or wrongly. And so why wouldn't they treat him that way? There might have been a brief moment in time where there were minds that were open to be changed enough to possibly challenge Trump. But that time passed a while ago. And it's pretty obvious at this point that Donald Trump is going to be your Republican nominee in 2024.
Did I detect a little bit of a tear in the eye there? I'm not the only one who saw that, right? I don't think Ben is as right as he thinks he is just yet. But again, I also completely botched the prediction on the Iowa caucus. I think that there's still a bit of a mountain to climb, but it got steeper for everybody else. Very much so by last night. And I do think that the mainstream media is still going to pour tremendous resources into trying to pull Haley forward because... And one of my last videos that I made, I actually titled it The Last Video before the Iowa caucus, was the fact that what I see for the Democrat support for Nikki Haley is that just like in the 90s, going into 2000, a Clinton or a Clinton surrogate has destabilized the world again, and now they're ready to go put a war hawk who's open. I don't think Nikki Haley's one of theirs. As much as people think that she's deep state and she's owned by the Democrats and this, that, the next thing, I don't think she is. I think she's a hapless pawn. But she's there and she's always been willing to go make a new Christian crusade in the Middle East. So they can go put her up at the top of the ticket and then go chant, "Give peace a chance," when she goes and starts another war, which she has been open about saying that she's going to. And I think there is going to be a lot of money poured into New Hampshire to try to make sure that she can rise to the top of the ticket. I don't think she's going to. But I think they are going to try their asses off to make it happen. We'll continue to watch and see what happens with this. The Des Moines Register, with a little bit of cope about the turnout, Iowa caucuses drew 15% of the state's registered Republicans. Why the lower turnout? Well, number one, it's all at one time. This, like they said in the other article, this isn't like they can go back out and vote anywhere they want to throughout the day. They all have to vote at one specific time. At about the dinner rush. Everywhere in the state at the same time. They have to all get off work at the same time. They can't just, like in a primary state like Wisconsin, when I go and vote here, I either can go over on my lunch break and not stand in a line and vote, or a lot of time I would finish off contemporary, get in the truck, go over to the town hall in Redacted, where I used to live, be in and out of the line in 10 minutes, and then go to work after the fact. But there were still people that were flowing into the town hall in Redacted. When I came home from work, I did a drive-by of the town hall on my way home from work, and there were people still voting throughout the day. Whereas everybody in Iowa has to be at their specific precinct, again, scattered all across the state, but their specific precinct at the same time. That's why there's lower turnout. And it was cold as fuck, too. Sub-zero temperatures and former President Trump's dominant lead going into Monday's caucus has contributed to just 15% of Iowa's registered Republicans turning out, lagging past caucus participation. Yeah, it was cold. The Republican Party reported 110,298 Iowans braved the sub-zero Arctic blast on Monday to caucus at 1,657 precincts across the state. The number of caucus goers comprised 15% of Iowa's roughly 752,000 registered Republicans. That falls short of the 20% to nearly 30% of all Republicans who caucused in recent years, experts say. That is full-on cope. And again, people coming out and saying, oh, we might be able to get Nikki to do it this time. New Hampshire is hers to lose. The Mogwai, wow, even Stretch Armstrong couldn't reach that far to call Haley a brown lady. Technically she is, she's Indian. No one expects the Haley Inquisition. Vote in the caucus and hit a White Castle. It's the American way. I guess I haven't spent a lot of time in Iowa. I guess I don't know. Is there White Castle in Iowa? There is one White Castle in Wisconsin. And I've eaten there. It's delicious. It's in Kenosha at a Shell station. On the interstate. Well, it's not technically in Kenosha. It's in Pleasant Prairie. At a Shell station next to a Woodman's. It's the only White Castle in Wisconsin. But when I was going to school in western Chicago, there was one just down the road from the school, and I ate there like every day. It's delicious. I love White Castle. I'm a little bit sad that I have not seen one in quite a while. The teeny tiny little burgers covered with the onions. It's delicious. I can't explain it. Makes you feel like crap afterwards, but it's delicious. Alright. Let's talk about the exit speeches. First Trump's, then Nikki's, and then a little bit of analysis of Trump's too. Brian Stelter with the speech. I think it's worth analyzing Trump's come-together rhetoric because it appeals to his voters and allows them to feel that no matter how divisive Trump actually is, what a bunch of weasel words that are stuck into there, he's on a unity quest. I really think now is the time for everybody in our country to come together.
And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together.
Our country to come
whether
together.
it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative, it would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing. That's practically never been like this. It's just so important, and I want to make that a very big part of our message. We're going to come together. It's going to happen soon, too. It's going to happen soon. And I really think this is...
It's going to happen soon. Come together. Right now. Over me. It'd be the best time to come together. The greatest time. Nobody can come together like I can. I think the unity is important. And again, I reiterate what I said earlier on in the stream. I am making a pledge not to insult any DeSantis people, no matter how nasty they get towards me. And I didn't talk about this on the show earlier, like a couple weeks ago when it happened, but like I called out some of DeSantis' bullshit in front of a DeSantis fan, and this person used to be a friend. This used to be somebody I respected a lot, and she went back and put my tweet in a group chat, and I got railroaded over it. And called a Trump supporter. That's the worst part. And I didn't really respond to any of the other insults because it's fucking Twitter or X, whatever it is. Like, who gives a fuck? But I couldn't bear to be called a Trump supporter. Haley had a little bit of a gaffe, and I think that this speech was written for those two numbers right there to be inverted. The post-millennial with the tweet that says, I can safely say tonight Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race. Well, I can safely say it kind of made the primary a one-person race, but if it did make it a two-person race, you're not one of those two people. Let's listen.
I can safely say tonight Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race. Tonight, I will be back in the great state of New Hampshire. And the question before Americans is now very clear. Do you want more of the same? Or do you want a new generation of conservative leadership? I can safely say, tonight, Iowa made this.
So while I was listening to Nikki Haley lie, I did pull up the White Castle website and was looking to see how far, like I just put in Dubuque as the location, and there doesn't appear to be any White Castle anywhere close to Dubuque. I don't know if there's a White Castle in Iowa or not. I don't. People ask, is there a White Castle in Iowa? Oh, well, there's a change.org petition, actually. Let me pull this over here. So we can answer the important questions, because I think we answered who's going to win the primary, and God forbid, maybe the presidency. We can answer the important questions instead on where there is a White Castle. People ask, with a change.org petition, White Castles in Iowa, change.org. Is there a White Castle in Iowa? White Castles are common among the Midwest. They can be found in every state surrounding Iowa, but sadly, not in Iowa. I want to look at this petition. It got started in 2019 by Ooga the Booga. That's awesome. White Castles are common among the Midwest. They can be found in every state surrounding Iowa, but sadly not in Iowa. White Castles should be found in larger towns and cities in Iowa, such as Des Moines, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, where Hillary Clinton is just chilling, Waterloo, etc. If we had White Castle, then it could diversify food across Iowa and bring in revenue to help Iowa economically and add jobs across Iowa. That's a nice sentiment, but I think if people wanted it, they would have already... I don't know why there's no White Castle in Iowa, but I'm pretty sure that if somebody wanted the franchise, they could probably get it for dirt cheap. And I'm pretty sure that if they were going to start adding a bunch more into the Midwest, they'd put one in like Eau Claire and La Crosse and Madison before they'd start filing them into Iowa. No, I'm not against putting them in Iowa. I'm looking at this from a strategic standpoint, and like Eau Claire, I think, is bigger than Dubuque. I've been to Dubuque like 5 times. And the city of Eau Claire is bigger than that, and that's one of the smaller cities in my state. with Dubuque being one of the bigger cities in Iowa. There are 100 supporters as of a year ago. I wish there was a White Castle in Quad Cities. Been eating at the ones in Chicago my whole life. Yeah. And I think that would be... Like, I would go to it. I wonder if there's one in Rochester. I know there isn't one in Winona. Which that's a tiny city too, but... I don't know. We are so far off topic right now, it's not even funny. But it's still great. Mogwai says, you know, some days I watch Trump and Biden and I welcome the nuclear blast that might be coming. Why do you think we play Fallout Fridays on this channel? We're practicing for the nuclear blast. We're going to New Hampshire, then South Carolina, then Washington. Yahoo! Dude, this show was here to be derailed. That's why it's live. Don't be sorry for derailing the show. That's why it's live. Alright, some review of the Trump speech. Number 1 from Stelter about the cutaway. Brian Stelter with an odd appraisal of Trump? It's not completely like Brian Stelter, but CNN cut away from Trump's victory speech in Iowa about 10 minutes. Under my voice, you hear him repeating his anti-immigrant rhetoric, says Jake Tapper.
Country. I can't imagine why they think that's a good thing.
Donald Trump declaring victory with a historically strong showing in the Iowa caucuses. If these numbers hold, the biggest victory for a non-incumbent president in the modern era for this contest. A relatively subdued speech as these things go so far, although here he is right now under my voice. You hear him repeating his anti-immigrant rhetoric.
Well, why don't we listen to the side of his anti-immigrant for ourselves?
Donald Trump declaring victory with a historically strong...
Shut up, Tapper. But one of the things, too, is... And I think some of this was sarcasm, but he congratulates DeSantis and Haley. I think they both did very, very well.
The senators, the congressmen from Washington, they came down from all different states. I want to thank you very much. I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're all having a good time together. And I think they both actually did very well. I really do. I think they both did very well. We don't even know what the outcome of second place is. And I see Carrie Lake. Congratulations, Carrie. Very good.
They both did
the senators,
very well.
The congressmen.
Don't pick Carrie Lake, by the way. Congratulations, Carrie Lake. No. Do not pick Carrie Lake as your running mate. I mean, again, I'm already not voting for you, so I don't know what I would withhold from you at this point, but do not pick Carrie Lake as your running mate. Because I don't think you can recover from that one. The day of the rake. The Hill reporting almost 2/3 of Canadians say U.S. democracy cannot survive another Trump term. And of course, the Canadians mean the colloquial use of our democracy. Democrat Party hegemony. Almost 2/3 of Canadians in a new survey said they're concerned that U.S. democracy will not survive another term under former President Trump. The poll by the Angus Reid Institute found that 64% of the Canadians strongly agreed that U.S. democracy would not survive 4 more years with Trump in the White House. Nearly 50% of Canadians also agreed the U.S. is on the way to becoming an authoritarian state as the election season ramps up. Well, it is under Biden, but you guys are not ready for that conversation, I can tell you that. Y'all ain't ready for that conversation. But, I mean, in this country we stopped caring what other countries thought of us in 1776. So that was our caucus news. We had a lot of it. We've got some time to do some other kinds of news stuff. We'll have to fly through it if we want to get through everything. And not get derailed. even though we'll get derailed because I like that. The Edgar endorsement is worth 20 points. Why do you think Graham watches you? Lindy Graham! I thought it was just because I said his name all the time. Alright. Let's talk about an article that popped up here before Iowa. And just the irony of this. Fears that Trump will use the military in dictatorial ways if he returns to the White House. You mean like the Biden admin is using the DOJ against his political enemies? Peter Nicholas, Catherine Doyle, Megan Leibovitz, and Courtney Kube reporting. Trump is sparking fears among those who understand the inner workings of the Pentagon that he would convert the nonpartisan U.S. military into the muscular arm of his political agenda as he makes comments about dictatorship and devalues the checks and balances that underpin the nation's 2-century-old democracy. A circle of appointees, independent Trump's political operation, steered him away from the ideas that would have pushed the limits of presidential power in his last term, according to books that they've written and testimony given to Congress. So they were looking for a book deal, and they were saying how bad that they thought Trump was, essentially. Most were gone by the end in a new term. Many former officials worried Trump would instead surround himself with loyalists unwilling to say no. Well, there's still that pesky thing called the Constitution and the courts. Keep that in mind. He can't just go back and do whatever he wants, the courts be damned. That's what Biden does. Trump has raised fresh questions about his intentions if he regains power by putting forward a legal theory that a president would be free to do nearly anything with impunity, including assassinate political rivals, so long as Congress can't muster the votes to impeach him and throw him out of office. No, that was not him. That was his lawyer. Now bracing for potential return, a loose-knit network of public interest groups and lawmakers is quietly devising plans to try to foil any efforts to expand presidential power, which could include pressuring the military to cater to his political needs. So, treason. That is called treason. Those taking part in the effort told NBC News that they're studying Trump's past actions and 2024 policy positions so that they'll be able to be ready if he wins in November. That involves preparing to take legal action and send letters to Trump appointees, spelling out consequences they'd face if they undermined constitutional norms. Really? I don't want to be the shoe on the other foot kind of person, but what do you think would happen if that went the other direction? Just out of curiosity. Like, where do you think that would go? If that went the other direction. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. Tell me how you think that would play out. If a bunch of like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though Marjorie is a Democrat herself, but a bunch of those people came out and said, hey, Biden cabinet, if you do this, there's going to be hell to pay. Because I don't think that would go over very well. But this is something that we've got to face down, and I do think that we've got the position where people are accepting that this may happen. We'll see what happens. This is not what I thought that this was going to be. We might have to study this one here next time through, but prequel to this is that Biden actually looks like he is facing down an election challenge as well for eligibility based on, and I did do some pre-reading on this, but I didn't pick the article that I did, and I'm kind of regretting this now, but it looks like Illinois, it's not because of dereliction of duty on the border, but Illinois, some downstate counties have found that Biden does not meet the threshold to be on the ballot in Illinois. We will be talking about that next week. All right, let's go on to Fani Willis, the RICO case. Trump co-defendant alleges improper relationship between Fulton County DA Fani Willis and Trump prosecutor, and filing offers no proof, except for the fact that she came out and said it. And this is a semantic game that they play. It's the same thing when they say unsubstantiated claims of words I can't say on YouTube. It's unsubstantiated. Oh my God, look at the unsubstantiated. There's no proof. One of Trump's co-defendants in the Fulton County election interference trial made a bombshell allegation late Monday, claiming DA Fani Willis is involved in an improper romantic relationship with one of the top prosecutors working on the case. She is, by the way. The filing points to no evidence and relies fully on sources close to both the special prosecutor and the district attorney. Well, I bet you if it goes into court, there's going to be sources named. In fact, if they were to go around and not bring sources forward, that would be stupid of them. And that would almost guarantee a loss of the case. And that person would probably actually get retaliatory prosecution brought against him. The allegations were made in a court filing by attorneys for Michael Roman, a former top Trump campaign official who faces a slew of charges, including violating Georgia's RICO law. He alleges that Willis is not only is in a romantic relationship with the prosecutor, Nathan Wade, but has also benefited financially from it. You mean like the lead campaign contractor on the Ilhan Omar campaign, by the way, where she divorced her brother husband and then married that dude. Tim Minette, I think it is his name. Some people did some things. Fox News going on with this as well. DA Fani Willis taking heat for reckless, stupid alleged relationship with prosecutor in Trump case, from Brian Flood. Fulton County DA Fani Willis, who brought charges against former President Trump on election interference, is taking heat from all sides, as allegations brought against her of having an improper romantic relationship with the prosecutor could tarnish the case. Court documents filed earlier this month say Willis hired special prosecutor Nathan Wade, her alleged romantic partner, to prosecute Trump, and benefited financially from the relationship in the form of lavish vacations that the two went on, using funds his firm received from working the case. Now, I thought that was only improper when Supreme Court justices did that. Willis has not confirmed or denied the claim, but suggested that she and Wade are being scrutinized because they're black. So CBS is doing the heavy lifting and saying, no evidence, no proof, no this or that, and, well, Willis is relying on Old Faithful. You just hate me because I'm black. Atlanta Journal-Constitution columnist Bill Torpy penned a piece bluntly headlined, Fani Willis, what are you thinking? And there is no rag out there that is more left-wing than the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And even they're coming out and saying this. I'm telling you right off the bat, there's probably something to this. Because again, the AJC would be doing the heavy lifting of, you got no proof. You can't prove anything. Race card, draw 4. It's crazy that Willis would have done this if true. It would be stupid, thoughtless, and even reckless. Surely she would have known this would come out, again, if true. This damages Willis's credibility and the perception that this is a fair prosecution. It's not. It's a RICO case on election interference. It's not a fair prosecution to begin with. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, this is outside of the allegations here for a second. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade went over and found anybody in the world that they could find who was remotely closely related to Trump and who could have been anywhere remotely closely related to the campaign for 2020 and arrested all of them and said, we're going to charge you all together. Anybody who wants to flip, come out here and tell us what we want to hear, and we'll make all these charges go away. That's a RICO case. They were improper in the mob days, and that's exactly what they did back then, too. They wanted to get one guy, but they knew, quote unquote, that he was doing something wrong, but they couldn't pin anything on him, so they just arrested everybody around him and said, all right, anybody who wants to sing can sing, and we'll make all your charges go away. Otherwise, you're going to prison for life, which is the same thing they did with this. Tell us what we want to hear about Donald Trump, or you're going to prison for life. That's a RICO case. And then if they found out that they're banging and then going on vacations with each other on top of it, enriching each other. I mean, again, this is the Tim Minette thing all over again, if this is true. And if this was, like, if it was Fox News that was coming out saying it, or Conservative Brief or anything else, and nothing else was out there talking about this, I would come out and, actually, I would probably be a little bit skeptical about it. But the Atlanta Journal-Constitution bringing this up tells me that there's probably something there. We'll have to see. In foreign news, are you ready for war? We're back to war. Reuters reporting exclusive. U.S. targets Houthi anti-ship missiles in a new strike on Yemen that goes right along with the old strike on Yemen. Yes, last week, on Thursday, Joe Biden ordered a strike in conjunction with the UK on Yemen, based on what Houthis are doing to the ships in the sea. The Houthis have been, of course, pirating vessels that may or not be aligned with Israel or delivering to Israel for goods, and of course capturing or killing the crew on these ships, capturing the payload, or holding it or the crew hostage, and tussling with the U.S. Navy in the Red Sea in the midst of it, because of course they were attacking people going towards the Suez Canal. So the people pulling Biden strings and the UK together came out and said, yeah, we're about done with this, and decided to go airstrike on land far, far away. Well, not far, far away from the Red Sea, because Yemen borders the Red Sea, but far, far away from the shipping lanes close to the Suez Canal. And then earlier today, they did it again from Idris Ali and Phil Stewart. It's probably not too late to go bolster up your stock portfolio with a little bit of Raytheon right now. I'm probably going to buy a little bit more after this. I don't support Raytheon, but, you know, profit. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing for profit. The U.S. military on Tuesday carried out a new strike in Yemen against 4 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles. 2 U.S. officials told Reuters the latest move against Iran-aligned group over its targeting of Red Sea shipping. I will admit, before I looked at the map last week, when this first started coming out, I actually thought Yemen was on the opposite side of the Middle East. I knew it was on the very south tip, but I thought it was reversed with the UAE. And Oman. Oh, man. So here is Yemen, which Hillary Clinton took great pride in destabilizing. That opens up a small strait with Djibouti. I love saying that name, by the way. Djibouti. Which does border up against the Red Sea. Going up towards Eritrea, which used to be part of Ethiopia. And Somalia with the contested border with Ethiopia. So most of what's been happening in the shipping lanes have been happening around here, and the Navy has been watching it. So, and Yemen also controls a series of islands out in the Red Sea as well. Up until last Friday, I thought Yemen and Oman were flipped. I thought Yemen was over here and Oman was over here. Oh man, I was wrong. Keep going. Houthi attacks on the Red Sea shipping have continued even after the US and Britain last week launched an initial wave of strikes to degrade Houthi capabilities. But unlike the initial US strikes last week, which were against pre-planned targets, Tuesday's strikes appear to show that the US military would proactively go after Houthi military capabilities as they are detected. I believe in Final Fantasy they call that preemptive strike. If you get rich, are you getting your lobes done? No, because I would have to shave myself bald, and I don't want to do that. I like where you're going with that, though. Never trust a man who doesn't take the time for umogs. The U.S. Military Central Command on Monday disclosed the first seizure in more than 4 years of advanced Iranian-manufactured ballistic missiles and cruise missile components in a January 11th operation that saw 2 U.S. Navy SEALs lost at sea near the coast of Somalia. Initial analysis indicates that these same weapons have been employed by the Houthis to threaten and attack innocent mariners on the international merchant ships transiting the Red Sea, Central Command said in a statement. There's been a lot of argument whether or not this was proper to do, and of course me being anti-war and knowing that this will be an open warfare in a state that we've already done behind-the-scenes warfare for, tells me that I want to stay out of it. But I can see some of the sympathizers' position of the fact that, yes, the U.S. Navy guarantees shipping lanes across the country, and given where Yemen is, next to one of the biggest shipping lanes in the world, if that is going to be our role as world police, then I can see where it's necessary. I would rather we don't be the role of world police, first and foremost. But if we have to be, then there's some necessity to it. But above all, my first goal is to keep us out of war for as long as we can. Rokana agreeing with me, by the way, on this one. I think part of this might have to do with the fact that this is a majority Muslim country, which is the new left-wing talking point at this point. But Rokana tweeting out, the president needs to come to Congress before launching a strike against the Houthis in Yemen and involving us in another Middle East conflict. That's Article 1 of the Constitution. I will stand up for that regardless of whether a Democrat or Republican is in the White House. That's not technically true, by the way. I wish it was true. I wish Rokana was right on this, but that's not technically true. Democrats and Republicans have given vast powers to the chief executive to make military strikes without congressional approval. Now, to have an open declaration of warfare against a target does require congressional approval. But military actions, minor military actions, does not. That's why we were never actually in an open war in Vietnam. It was a military conflict, and even in the Middle East, it was just a series of military actions. The last actual war that, like Ro Khanna is talking about here, was Korea. Just to give you a timeline of how long that's been. That is the last time we were actually in an official declared war. In spite of the fact that we've been in every military conflict across the Middle East since 1973. I wish it was like Ro Khanna says. Section 2C of the War Powers Act is clear. The President may only introduce the U.S. into hostilities after congressional authorization or in a national emergency when the U.S. is under imminent attack. No, that was expanded. That was expanded under H.W. That was expanded under Ford. It was expanded under Ford and expanded further under H.W. Bill got an expansion of it, and W got an expansion of it. Even Barack got an expansion of it. Do you have a tattoo? I do not. I had an interest in tattoos when I was younger. But I was also really poor. Like, the bottom fell out on me in the economy. I got out of school in 08 in a career path that was every guy's backup career. So I didn't have a lot of money until I was about 30. And then it's just, I was trying to play catch up on everything else from when I was in my 20s. It never crossed my mind. I'm not against tattoos. I like people that have them. You know, a little crush on a girl that's got a bunch of them. But I do not have any myself, no. Thank you, Lunar Trees, by the way. Korea was a police action. No, there was a declaration of war with Korea. There actually was. There hasn't been a declaration since World War II. No, Korea was officially declared. We're actually still in that war under the declaration. Perfect. Thank you. You're welcome. I've seen some really cool tattoos, by the way. So, I know I've got one friend, and he does have tattoos, but he came to Christianity later in life, where he is against the idea of any new tattoos. I'm not like that. What you do with your body is between you and God. But with the Yemeni action, by the way, in both our country and the other country that helped carry some of this out here, activists protest at British base in Cyprus used in Yemen strikes. Reuters reporting again. Pro-Palestinian activists protested at the gates of RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus on Sunday, angry that the British base was used as a launch pad for strikes against the Houthi militia in Yemen. The US and British warplanes, ships, and submarines launched dozens of airstrikes against Houthi forces in Yemen overnight on Thursday to Friday in retaliation for attacks on the Red Sea shipping that the Iran-backed group says is responsible for the war in Gaza. Royal Air Force Akrotiri was used as a staging point for the Typhoon fighter jets involved in the operation. Several hundred protesters chanted "Out with bases of death" at the entrance to the Royal Air Force Akrotiri, one of the two bases Britain retains in Cyprus, a former colony. The iron gates to the heavily guarded compound, which sit on a peninsula on Cyprus's southernmost tip, were locked with dozens of police present. We're here because we condemn the complicity of the UK government in using Cypriot land for their agenda to support Israel in their onslaught of Gaza, said Natalia Olivia of the Cyprus-based United for Palestine organization. So, and these guys are like right on the ground where this is happening. I don't know where Cyprus is right offhand, but I know it's close to here. Okay, so they're protesting over here. I guess not down in Yemen itself, but with the Air Force base that was used to stage. I guess I had that wrong, which I'll admit to. Cyprus itself appears to be more in a Cyrillic area, but yes, this was a former British colony. Mogwa says, we're gearing up for conscription, low recruitment, and multiple fronts. Lunar Trees brought up the sticker party. Thank you for that. Yeah, I love the chat. The more chat we get, the more we get promoted. So, absolutely, chat away. That's why I interact more with the chat on the night show than I used to when I did a morning show. Because I know that the more chat that's out there, the more we get promoted. But they are going there. On our side of the world, Chuck Calesto reports emerging that all non-essential White House staff have been told to leave the building. First off, this is the fiscal conservative in me. Why do we have non-essential White House staff? Imagine being told that too, by the way, like, oh, you're not essential to our operations. We just put you on here because of the fact that we need to pad out numbers. Imagine being told that. But, I mean, we were told the same thing during the lockdowns too of, oh, I'm an essential worker. Well, I'm not an essential worker. Imagine being told that by your boss. You're not essential to our operation? Screw off. But non-essential White House staff have been told to leave the building as a massive group of pro-Yemen protesters push up the fences on Pennsylvania Avenue. And this was almost completely uncovered by the mainstream media. Fox did something on it. For all that that's worth, because, I mean, you should turn off Fox no matter what. But like CNN didn't pick this one up, MSDNC didn't pick this one up, Reuters didn't pick this up, the Associated Press didn't pick this up. Fox did. Fox. But let's watch the protest. And by the way, has anybody seen Ray Epps? Actually, I don't have red hair. I don't know why it's showing up red right now. But I have brown hair. My dad is white blonde, my sister's white blonde, and my mom has brown hair too. I've dyed my hair red before, but some of my dad's siblings do have red hair, but no, I don't. My sister's white blonde too. Oh, I suppose, yeah, Mogwai's actually got it the other way. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing for profit. I'm not needed? You're going to keep paying me? I call this a win. Fair point. Case in point.
Drop the bombs on Yemen now! Drop the bombs on Yemen now! Hands off Yemen! 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 Yemen, Yemen, make us proud! Yemen, Yemen, make us proud! Turn this invasion around! Turn this invasion around! Yemen, Yemen, make us proud! Yemen, Yemen, make us proud! Turn this invasion around! Drop the bombs on Yemen now! Drop the bombs on Yemen now! Hands off Yemen! Hands off Yemen! Hands off Yemen! Hands off Yemen!
I'll give them credit. It's a different set of lyrics than, hey, hey, ho, ho, person I like has, or I don't like has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. Like, I've always criticized these left-wing protesters. You guys have the monopoly on artists, and you've been using that same chant since 1953. Just changing the name of who has to go. You have the monopoly on artists, songwriters, and rappers. And yet that's the best you can still come up with? Fox with their piece on it. Demonstrators protest Biden bombing Yemen outside the White House. And yet if those people had all been wearing red hats, that would have been an insurrection! My insurrection! Chris Pandolfo reporting. Demonstrators furious with President Biden over the United States military's bombing of Yemen gathered outside the White House to protest on Thursday. Activists chanted, let Yemen live and hands off Yemen, while holding anti-war signs and waving Iranian flags. Fox 5 DC reported. Yeah, they're not even waving Yemeni flags, they're waving Iranian flags. The rally was organized by the Act Now to Stop War and End Racism, or ANSWER. See, they can come up with acronyms, but they can't come up with new lyrics, although I gave them credit for having new lyrics this time. A left-wing anti-war movement founded 3 days after the September 11, 2001 attacks to oppose the U.S. war on terror. A similar demonstration was held in Times Square in New York City. The protest came in response to joint strikes by the U.S. and Britain, targeting more than a dozen military locations that belong to the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. President Biden said that he had authorized the strikes in direct response to... Jill, what was I doing this in direct response to, man? Unprecedented Houthi attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea, man. Moses part of that. I was there for that, man. I remember Moses. He's. I'm still giving a speech, man. In the Red Sea, including those of anti-ship ballistic missiles, for the first time in history. Also false, by the way. Anti-ship ballistic missiles have been around since the 60s. At least. Any torpedo is an anti-ship ballistic missile. It's got a good beat and you can dance to it. I know what movie that's from. That's one of the few movies I've seen. It's actually one of my favorite movies. The Doc can dance? Hey, far out frisbee. Right, where are we at for time? I know we got to be getting towards the end here pretty soon. Another pro-Palestinian demonstration, this time in the Colorado legislature. Pro-Palestinian activists had interrupted the first day of the Colorado legislature. About 20 people placed around the gallery in different spots, being escorted out by CSP and sergeants. Which maybe you shouldn't be pissing off your own base, but, you know, go off. Alright, there's that demonstration. Let's look at this one.
Failure that business place. You will all be remembered as complicit in the genocide if you stay silent any longer.
So this is actually one of the times where I start to wonder whether or not we are going to see, because I have been 50-50 on who is going to win the presidency in 2024, and the split in the Democrat side over whose side to be on in the Israel conflict, I think is going to be one of the bigger indicators of that, and it could hand the Orange Man the presidency. It's entirely possible. In fact, possibly a landslide. Because while a large section of the more radical part of the base on the Democrat side is in favor of Palestine, most of your Democratic politicians are still in the tank for Israel. And I don't know how they square that circle. I mean, other than screaming racism all the time, but at some point that is going to get old. I don't think it's going to be this election cycle, but at some point that is going to stop working. All right, what else do we have? We are at 1:45 on the recording, 1:49 on the live stream. Let's talk just a bit. Let's see. Do I want to do this now, or do I want to do a makeup stream on Thursday? Because there's a part of me that wants to go back and do a makeup stream on Thursday, because I know that Mogwai likes it. I know we'll probably pick up a little bit more news after that fact, and we can do some foreign stuff. Let's pick up one on Thursday. We'll do a short pickup stream on Thursday, or maybe a full-length one. I don't know. We'll see which one happens. I know that I said that I was going to order the stuff for my new business on Thursday, but I think we're going to do a short pickup stream on Thursday so we can talk about the Ukraine, what's happening over there. But we do have to head out of here for tonight, so let's do things I like and things that I hate and head out of here. Well, first we'll do the rules of acquisition, which I gotta find a new fandom to figure out what it, because we are getting close to the end of the rules of acquisition. But that's a problem for future J. Edgar. Sucks to be that guy. Alright, the rules of acquisition. One of our closing segments out to this. Just want to look over here. There's a movie called PCU with Jeremy Piven. It isn't the best in the world, but sums up left-wing protesting to a T. Yeah, I know Mogwai likes the makeup streams. So yeah, we'll do another one of those. Start over for the newer viewers. Well, we can do that. Yeah, because a lot of the people who check this out either on the replay or live weren't here when I started this off, because I've got a completely different audience doing the replays. Alright, where are we at? We finished off last week on the 243rd rule of acquisition. There are 5 that are skipped in Alpha and Beta canon, bringing us to the 248th rule of acquisition, which is a modification of something that's actually used in modern philosophy as well. And that is the definition of insanity is trying the same failed scheme and expecting different results. A play, of course, on the definition of insanity is trying the same experiment over and over again and expecting different results. This is from a newer beta canon novel called Department of Temporal Investigations #3, Shield of the Gods. I think that just came out like last year too, because I don't remember this being in the rules of acquisition before. But I mean, when we look at what's going on and the fact, we can even make this political at this point, because we talk about Nikki Haley being in the White House and we talk about Ron DeSantis being in the White House. And these are people who were long-time politicians, long-time right-wing politicians. And DeSantis himself is trying to win on the culture war. And he's failing on doing so. Because that's not where the GOP base is right now. But we do this we do this in finance, we do this in sales, we do this everywhere else. If not just your scheme, I know that they're trying to paint the Ferengi as capitalist and capitalism being evil for the rules of acquisition. But in anywhere, I mean, if you have a selling pattern and it doesn't work and people are consistently going out to your competition, then it's time to go back and do something else. Otherwise, you can again continue to try the same scheme over and over again, expecting a different result. Trying to sell the same bullshit to the same customer over and over again. Failing over and over again, or succeeding, and expecting something different to happen. Now, of course, this is not mentioning, like, if you go back and try again, but this is trying the same thing under the same factors. The same speech, the same customer, the same product, with the same failure, over and over again. Not, oh, well, hey, here's a new customer, and he hasn't heard my pitch yet, so let me go give my pitch to this guy. That would be a different result, because that's a different person. But to do this over and over, same customer, same product over and over again, yes, that would be insane. That would be the definition of insanity. So, there it is, your 248th rule of acquisition. Let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate. So, last week, when we did things I like and things that I hate, I talked about a blogger, and I think she's a TikToker who, I don't use TikTok, so I found this woman on Instagram called the Lady J, who goes through culture war kinds of things, mostly on entitlement, but also on dating. We watched one on financial disparities, but she also goes into the political as well. But there was another one. Actually, I found Lady J second. I found this young woman first, Emily W. King, as one who does focus more on the dating side of the culture war. And I know that, again, it's a woman, an attractive woman, who says the right thing about that men want to hear, so she must be a pick-me. But, I mean, I still enjoy the commentary. I enjoy the subject. This one doesn't give a... Like, she's got a cover for each one of the videos that she puts out, so we can't see who's in them. But there are some fun ones here. We're going to listen to a couple of these short videos here from Emily W. King, and, well, you'll see why I like them. This one is especially hilarious.
No, just like, all I'm saying is, like, I would have to be a fucking weirdo to not want to spend New Year's Eve with me. Like, you don't want to walk in with me dressed like this on New Year's Eve? You don't want to kiss me at midnight?
Well, I
It's
would,
giving weirdo
except for this
energy.
attitude.
You're a fucking weirdo for that.
The reason why a man does not want to hang out with you or spend time with you has way less to do with how you look and way more to do with how he feels about you as a person. Seriously, if a man finds a woman whose personality he really likes and he's attracted to her, what I mean by attracted is a yes-no attraction. Like, you don't need to be a 10. If he finds this woman, the dressing up and the fun night out is just the cherry on top. It's the bonus. It's not the deciding factor. So if a man doesn't want to spend New Year's Eve with you, I would reflect less on what's wrong with him and turn the reflection a little bit more inward and on the relationship between us. And I would realize he's probably not that into me, and how I look on the outside and me dressing up in a mini dress is not going to change his thought process.
No, just like...
And I can understand that entirely. Like, I have gone out with some knockouts. I've gone out with some of the most beautiful women in the world. I know I let myself go a little bit on this aspect at this point. But I have gone out with some knockouts who, like, 5 or 6 minutes into having dinner with them, like, God, I don't want to be here. God, I don't want to be here. Like the one, there was a girl who was fairly well my type. I know I don't talk about my own personal experiences. This was fairly recently. Fairly well my type. On the outside. But she showed up to our date at 29 years old with a chaperone. And I'm like, yeah, this is not going to be... There's not going to be a date number 2 at this point. I could have looked at that girl all night long. Very, very, very much my type. But, yeah, no. Let's see. There was another one that I wanted to do. The reason men struggle to hit on women. I like this one, too, a lot.
If you're a male and you're like, what the hell, there's no good females out there to date. These are all trash options. What do I do? I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, and he was telling me that he had such a hard time finding a girlfriend before he met me, and this is why. Tell me if you agree. So he would walk up to a lot of different females. That's basically what he did to me. That's how he found me, okay? And when he walked up to these females, he would say, hi, just like that, and want to start a conversation. He said so many people would just look him in the eyes and either just walk away, like straight up, look at him and just leave, or they would give him like the biggest resting bitch face and then be such a bitch to him that it's like, why would you even want to have a conversation? It's like you're talking to a wall or someone that like wants to stab you in the face.
There are so many men that can relate to this because most men that have dared to approach a woman, they know that a soft rejection, you know, like the I have a boyfriend or no thanks, I'm not interested, that is actually a positive outcome, which is so messed up because somehow it's become rare to treat somebody like a decent human being just because he's a man.
If you're a male and you're like, what the hell, there's no good females out there to date.
I can definitely relate to that too, and I remember the point where that shifted too, where like I could sit down with a woman studying alone at a Culver's and strike up a conversation, and nobody even thought it was weird, or the woman would actually sit down and have the conversation. I met probably one of my better friends that way, which we did date briefly too, but probably she wound up going off and getting married to somebody else, but we stayed in contact for a long time afterwards, and she was integral to my faith journey on top of that as well. Because I could sit down and have a conversation without worrying that she'd scream or pull up pepper spray. Whereas, like, with what this woman is saying and pointing out of the fact of, I mean, you go and try to do this kind of thing now, and somebody will scream, blow the rape whistle, throw the bear spray in your face, and then go on to TikTok and talk about how you were a sex pest and how you were harassing her. There was one other one that I wanted to do this. She split the bill so she's not seeing him again. This one was crazy.
So when the bill comes, I didn't even look at how much it was, but I was like, I'm happy to split it. And he was like, no, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, no, it's fine, because obviously I'm not going to be like, no, you pay for the meal. Even though, personally, I think he should have, because he asked me to go on that date to that restaurant.
Which is fair.
That was quite expensive. I ended up paying 55 quid for half the meal. And it wasn't my idea. It wasn't my idea to go there.
The sad part is that I bet you anything that man had no intention of having her pay. Because to me, what it sounds like is that she was pushing her offer to pay. And some men just don't know what to do with that. They may think that you really do want to pay for half of it. I definitely don't think that he did the you get the next round thing as a way for her to end up paying for half of the meal. He probably took her card and then was really uncomfortable with the idea of her paying for it. So he was like, you get the next round, knowing that that next round would never come. Ladies, look, this is my advice. You gotta be true to who you are and what you want. So if you don't want to pay for that first date, especially if he's the one that offered to take you out on the date and he's the one that planned it, do not go on that date and offer to pay. Instead, just make sure that you let him know how much you appreciate it. Now, for this to work, you have to genuinely appreciate it, but that is all that man needs.
So when the bill comes...
So, and there are a lot of them on this page. If you are on Instagram, I don't know if this lady is on TikTok or not. I don't know if she's on YouTube or not, honestly. But it's worth finding it. If you find Emily W. King on whichever platform you do, the videos are worth it, definitely. Like, I do not follow accounts with over 100, like, especially girl accounts with over 100,000 followers, but I was so entertained by what this woman is putting out here. Yes, with 1 million followers, I am one of them, with no problem. Go check that out, Emily W. King _ on Instagram, or, again, if you find her anywhere else. Let's see if there is anywhere else you can find her. Yes, we'll follow the link. Oh, she's on X. I'll be supporting that later on YouTube and on TikTok. So if you have that godforsaken platform, you can go check her out over there. All right, let's do a couple other things I like. California getting a little bit of I put this in things I like because this is a bit of this is what you deserve. You voted for this. California faces $37 billion with a B budget crisis, as Gavin Newsom proposes slashing climate change programs, housing, and clean energy spending for state. With the left-wing bent of California, I can't believe those were the ones that went first. But at some point, you got to figure out where you're getting diminished return from, and it's typically there. Gavin Newsom has proposed slashing climate change housing and clean energy programs in the state to plug an estimated $38 billion deficit. Now, realistically, they're just going to go back to the federal government and say, please, can I have some more money, please? I promise we'll tell you that red states are the biggest welfare recipients again harder. Newsom released details of California's new $291 billion state spending plan for the 2024-25 budget year on Wednesday. The nonpartisan Legislative Analyst's Office predicted last month that California's budget deficit could be $68 billion, but Newsom said it was much lower. I bet you it's not. He proposed covering the financial shortfall by tapping $13 billion from reserves, trimming $8.5 billion from programs, deferring some spending in the future, and spreading it out over more years. Newsom's plan includes $8.5 billion in spending cuts, with about half of those cuts spread across various housing and climate programs liberals have long pushed. Climate change and housing programs as part of their agenda. Well, you can be rich or you can push the climate change agenda. You can't do both at the same time. Except for private charity. You can try private charity. I just don't know if it's going to work, so good luck, SoCal. And I know the NorCal people are not in favor of all of this. Sometimes I wonder why they stay. But good luck, SoCal. You voted for this. This is the redheaded libertarian, which I can't. Why do I keep pulling stuff up on this woman? I don't care for this woman, but she manages to pick up stuff I like more and more and more. I haven't cared for her since she joined Vice. But the caption is Rep. Massey bodies a CNN anchor. And yeah, he owned her on this one. Let's listen.
And take the heat, but I'll also talk about what's in that resolution.
Recognizes that denying Israel's right to exist is a form of anti-Semitism.
That's the name of the resolution. Congratulations.
You do not support that. I'm not reading the name of the resolution.
Congratulations, you're able to read the name of the resolution. I don't vote on the names.
Ooh, Congressman, I don't think you're trying to question my intelligence now, are you?
No, I'm just saying you don't have time to prepare for this like I did.
Do you mean the 2 pages that I read in 2 minutes this morning and highlighted the resolved that the House of Representatives?
Good for you. You took 2 minutes. There have been 19 resolutions. I know what's in all of them. I study them. And I say right on social media, if you'd done a little more research, you wouldn't have to ask me if I acknowledge Israel's right to exist. It's right there on my social media.
I can read I've read your social media. I also think, given what is stated in this resolution, it is worthy of re-asking.
I enjoy this dialogue. I hope I get to come back on and talk about what's in these bills again.
In these resolutions and in these statements made by Congress and in this resolution where everyone but you voted in support of, I'm happy to have you on anytime to discuss, and will continue to do my research. And do not appreciate when someone even suggests or insinuates that I'm not prepared.
I'm going to suggest that you didn't have time to do the research that I've done. You did some research.
Congressman Massey, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Kate.
Sarah?
And take the heat.
Thank you for coming on. Congressman Massey, do you see the gritted teeth of that? That is so great. I love that. And the last one on things that I like before we do some things that I hate. This fucking moron. With the tractor protests in Germany, an ecology activist got sick of the tractor protests and he found the tow rope in his Dacia and he thought he was going to tow that John Deere away. God bless his heart. If you are listening on the audio platform, I am sorry that you are going to miss seeing this here. But those of you watching on video platform, both live and on the replay, you're going to get to see this here. Almost makes me wish I still understood German.
Nach meiner Arbeit will ich gerne Auto fahren.
Du hast doch nicht dran.
Du musst noch anhängen.
So he missed the first time.
Jetzt einfach mal hochgewählt und dann direkt abschleppen.
Jetzt.
Riech Hackeletter. Warte mal weiter. Will man, ja, will man. Oh ja. Ja, Junge.
Mach Lacke! Sei hast du!
I don't know if you need me to explain why I found that hilarious, but Mr. Scott has joined us on the YouTube side. Welcome for that. We'll be wrapping it up here, but we are doing a makeup stream on Thursday, so come back and join us for that. Now let's do a couple things that I hate. Alright, on things that I hate today, starting with our friends to the northwest. Fox News reporting Washington State Democrats propose additional tax for privilege of using ammunition. By the way, this has led to a 3-day conversation in the Discord over where it's right and where it's wrong to tax. And I do appreciate the input. I happen to stand on the side where Chris and Midget stand of that this is wrong and this is infringing on the rights, but I do very much appreciate the crosstalk and the other side of things and trying to justify this. I wish I could steel man like I'm not going to call it the person who it was, but I wish I could steel man like that person actually legitimately believes. So we can actually have these discussions and get to the bottom of where it's at. Louis Cassiano reporting for Fox News. Washington State Democrats are proposing an additional tax on residents for the privilege of using ammunition in an effort to decrease gun violence. 15 state Democrats recently introduced House Bill 2238, citing the health and safety threat posed by gun violence throughout the state. The legislation was referred Tuesday to the state's legislature committee on finance. If passed, the bill would impose a use and sales tax on the retail sale of ammunition. A use tax is levied on every person in the state for the privilege of using ammunition as a consumer at the rate of percent of selling price, the bill states. It's a sales tax. That's what it is, by the way. It's a sales tax. The text of the bill describes ammunition as projectiles with their fuses, propelling charges, or primers designed to be fired from firearms. Ammunition includes any shotgun shell and any rifle, pistol, or revolver cartridge. Now, I'm against taxation in general. If you have been on this channel for more than 30 seconds, you already know that. I'm against government, so that means that I'm against taxation. But when you're doing this in a punitive way, to go back out and try to make it harder for people to use what they have been given a God-given right to, and it's been protected and enshrined in our Constitution, by instead of going after the object itself, going after what's useful. I mean, we see what you're doing. Stevie Wonder could see what you're doing. It's not hard to see what you're doing. But just be obvious and come out and say, no, we want to try to find some way to come out and stop you from buying guns instead of doing the wiggle words. And I know one of the Steelman arguments to this was the idea that what they're going to use is they're going to use this for research to prevent gun violence or anything else. No, they're not. This is the government. You'll be lucky if 10 cents on the dollar gets to where they promise it's going to go. Most of it's going to go into the pockets of bureaucrats and paying interns to pad up the jobs numbers. I can see the government clearly for what it is, and I do not care for it. And I will continue to not care for it. And if you are so concerned about the research products, I will say that you are as always free to donate to a private charity that does so, without having to have the government markup and the government off the top. Alright, what else do we have here on things that I hate? Cummins! Cummins is set to repair 600,000 Ram trucks in a $2 billion emissions cheating scandal. God, I hate this. This makes it so hard, by the way, for those of us who actually want to cheat emissions, because they see shit like this and they go out and test it. Especially when it's a huge manufacturer like Cummins, who's also out in the commercial world. Now, this will not affect commercial editions of the 6.7 QSB engine, but this will affect non-commercial, which is held to a different emission standard. And just like Volkswagen, that Cummins has been covering up the actual numbers for, to make sure that they pass. Engine maker Cummins will recall 600,000 Ram trucks as part of a settlement with federal and California authorities. Of course, California is at the bottom of this. That also requires the company to remedy environmental damage caused by illegal software that let it skirt diesel emissions test. Boy, I don't want to tell you about some of the stuff that's actually out there, especially on a YouTube video. New details of the settlement reached in December were released on Wednesday. Cummins had already agreed to a $1.675 billion civil penalty to settle claims, the largest ever secured by the Clean Air Act, plus $325 million for pollution remedies. Long story short, pickup trucks are going up in price. That's the long and short of it. That brings Cummins' total penalty to more than $2 billion, which officials from the Justice Department, EPA, CARB, and the California Attorney General called a landmark in a call with reporters on Wednesday. Here's what I don't get about emissions. When I worked at the Mack dealer, it was a small Volvo, single axle, came in, and Volvos have the mileage tracker like most of your modern vehicles have that tell you what your average mileage, and this is average mileage, by the way, what your average mileage was on your last trip. And I've been working both in the parts departments and on the floor for truck dealerships basically since I was 24. So I've seen a lot of this stuff and I understand what trucks get for mileage, or what they got for mileage before emissions came in and spoiled it all. Now, you cannot get a heavy-duty rig that gets more than 6 miles of the gallon anymore. And they pump it full of chemicals and everything else to make it come out and be cleaner than the air around it, so they say. The old rigs, again, and I will confess to the fact that this was a smaller vehicle, probably didn't carry full 80,000 pounds everywhere it went because it was single axle. But when I got in, on the average mileage on the dash was 11.2 out of a D11 Volvo. I'd never seen anything. I'd never seen double digits on an average tracker on a heavy truck before that point. And even before that, people were talking about 7, 8, 9 miles of the gallon in the big rigs. Now they're lucky to get 4 or 5. You would think at some point you would want to curb the amount of use of fuel because I was told we were going to run out of oil at some point here. Maybe I'm wrong, but all I've ever seen these emission systems do is put out more emissions. But apparently Cummins found a way to skirt the law on the light duties and they got their pee-pee slapped for it. Vice. Speaking of people that I can't stand, Vice. Democrats propose bill to neuter militias. This is always a good sign. Tess Owen reporting for Vice News. Militias would like to spend their weekends training to overthrow the government could find themselves running afoul of federal law. Maybe they're not trying to overthrow the government. Maybe they want to make sure that nobody comes across the sea and tries to invade at a port of entry after your demoralized military fails. Under new legislation being proposed in the House and Senate Thursday that seeks to curtail paramilitary activity. The Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act, being introduced by Ed Markey of Massachusetts and Jamie Raskin of Maryland, are both Democrats. The legislation would prohibit publicly patrolling, drilling, or engaging in harmful or deadly paramilitary activities, interfering with or interrupting government proceedings, interfering with someone else exercising their constitutional rights. By interfering with their constitutional right, by the way, falsely assuming the role of law enforcement and training to engage in such behavior. The lawmakers propose different tiers of criminal penalties depending on whether the violations result in injury or property damage. What this boils down to is the fact that they're making it illegal to go on public land and train. They make it very, very, very opaque on whether or not this is the kind of thing where, would this be a paintball match? That's paramilitary training. Have you seen some of the gear that they do? What about airsoft? Does this outlaw airsoft on public land? The legislation comes out almost exactly 3 years after January 6th. Oh no! When thousands of Trump supporters, many dressed for war, stormed the U.S. Capitol. Well, okay, my first question here, of course, is what does this include? My second question is what about private land? Are you going to start busting down the doors on private property if you see people playing airsoft outside? What are you going to do? Where do you want to go with this? Other than making sure, of course, that you can never be challenged anywhere in the future. But leave it to Dems, I guess. Let's finish this out here. I was going to save some of this for Thursday, but let's finish out what we have. I'm sure I can find things I like and things that I hate in 2 days. The New York Post reporting, people are eating laundry pods again and landing in the hospital. Here's why you should never. Well, because it's a soap pod. You fucking morons. Like, I didn't realize this is something that had to be said. This political candidate needs to come clean. 3 people in Taiwan have been hospitalized after eating laundry pods handed out as freebies during the country's current presidential campaign. The trio, who have not been publicly named, allegedly mistook the colorful liquid laundry detergent for candy, the Associated Press reported. Yeah, that's exactly who you want voting for you. One of the duped eaters was an 80-year-old man, while a second was identified as an 86-year-old woman. All 3 victims had their stomachs flushed by doctors and are expected to make a full recovery. So, this does seem like an accident at some point, but, I mean, come on. At some point, this has got to be thinning out of the gene pool. Natural selection has to take over at some point. Like, really? I don't know. Video shared me by Golden Leaf. Doctor says losing weight has a lot of negative effects and is risky, and doctors should never tell people to lose weight. Woke doctors are literally encouraging patients to be obese and unhealthy. Self-improvement. Drop of ice, pick up a new skill, get a side hustle, and drop 10 pounds. That's my official advice.
Doctors should never be prescribing weight loss to anyone, ever, at any point in time. And here's why. When we recommend any procedure, treatment, medication, or whatever, we need to be thinking about the pros and the cons, the benefits and the risks. So what are the benefits of intentional weight loss? Well, the main one is you become thinner. Temporarily, mind you, because up to 98% of people will regain all of the weight that they lost within 5 years. Up to 2/3 of them actually will gain back more than they lost in the first place. There are some possible temporary health benefits, but none of them are long-lasting. For example, you may be able to get your diabetes into remission for 12 months, 18 months, but no longer than that for the vast majority of people. In fact, most of the data out there focuses A, on the short-term benefits, and B, more on health risks rather than health outcomes. And by that I mean they'll focus on your blood pressure or your A1C or your cholesterol rather than focusing on, say, heart attacks or strokes or cancer.
All side effects of being overweight, by the way.
But what about the risks? Well, there are lots of them. First of all, there are the physical risks. People who diet suffer from malabsorption, poor energy levels, and when taken to extreme levels, they can become dehydrated. They can even cause damage to their heart, their kidneys, and various other internal organs. Then there's the psychological damage, the low mood, low self-worth, increased rates of anxiety, depression, and even suicidality. Poor cognition, inability to concentrate, poorer memory, inability to do basic, simple tasks that were once quite easy for you. And that's just in the short term. What about the risk of eating disorders? The more you diet and the more extreme your dieting techniques, the higher the risk of you developing an eating disorder, which is particularly bad if you're a person with a bigger body, because that's also far less likely to get diagnosed and far less likely to get treated properly. Then there's weight cycling or weight fluctuations, which have been shown over and over again to be detrimental to people in the long term.
So, this doctor does bring up some good points, with the problem being, yes, people relapse when they go into things. And yes, if you jump up and jump down all the time, that can be very unhealthy. Where we should be looking to teach people that, yes, once you're into the routine, you should work to keep with it at some point, to some level, rather than losing all your self-control and then relapsing. I need to go down about 30 pounds myself, and I know it is. I know this full well. The problem with me is I don't carry anything behind me. It all comes out in front of me. I can't even tell if this is a dude or a chick, by the way. But I've never... Okay, I probably can't say that on YouTube. But I've never met anybody who's regretted dropping some of the weight unless they are into the point of full-on anorexia and emaciation. Sometimes those people get to the point of, yeah, I regret going down so far. But I've never met somebody who was 300 pounds that regretted going down to 200 pounds. Ever. And the last thing that I hate today, Politico magazine telling us that Pizzagate, QAnon, and the Epstein list, why the far right is obsessed with sex trafficking. I'm not going into this article. I'm going to tell you why I hate this right now. Why are you not? That is one of the greatest sins you can inflict on somebody else. Putting that person into a situation where they have no control over their own body. In one of the most intimate parts of your life. One of the most intimate activities you can engage in. Yes, I'm concerned about sex trafficking and I want it to stop. And yes, there is suspicion in all of these that some of this would have been true at some point. Cheese Pie Fence Store didn't turn out to be, so they say. But I mean, the Epstein list, we know. Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison right now for trafficking minors to nobody. That's not a conspiracy theory. A jury found enough evidence to say that it actually happened. And again, my question goes back to, why are you not? Why does this not concern you? Why do you not want this to stop? I don't know. But again, that's our culture war for you. Let's get the hell out of here before I get more black-pilled. Alright. We're going to do a makeup stream on Thursday. I don't know if it's going to be long or short. It'll depend on what the news cycle does in the next couple days. And I'll be looking through some other sources that I do for that. But I know we're going to focus mostly on what's happening foreign. I'm going to do a little bit more research on Yemen and what happened there. Plus, we got to talk about the Ukraine, because that's going to be the forever war, and some immigration stuff as well in our country. So don't miss that. That will be on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Our regular stream tomorrow for Final Fantasy X. Sorry for that getting interrupted by the debate, Florida Man versus War Woman last week, but we will go back. We'll probably get pretty close to the end of Final Fantasy X tomorrow, depending on how long I decide to play. But we've got that coming up, so we'll see you then. Let's throw some outro music up, given by the wonderful Stephen Ignoramus, of course. Alright, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who caught this live, everybody who's going to catch us on the replay, and everybody on the audio platform as well. Thank you guys again. We'll be back here tomorrow for Final Fantasy X, Thursday for a makeup stream of the stories we could not get to today on Contemporary. I knew that the caucuses were going to be a big deal. I knew that coming in, so I'm not disappointed that we just spent all of our time on something. This is a big decision-making process for what's going to happen in our country next. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Get some dinner. Hug your family. Get some good sleep. I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight. I have not been sleeping well lately, but we will see what happens with that. And we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a fantastic time. Look forward to seeing you guys again here next time. And until then, take care. Have a good night. Take care of each other. Stick around if you are on Twitch for the raid, and I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.